Dads, have you ever wondered what's going on inside your children's minds? Would you like to know what they're thinking? If you had a chance to learn ways to strengthen your child's mental health to help them feel safe, loved, and confident, would you take that opportunity? That chance is now on this episode, so don't go anywhere. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our proud sponsor of this episode and the Fatherhood Challenge, Ingenious Prep. Ingenious Prep is the world's premier admissions consulting firm, proud to be officially recognized as the country's top college admissions consultants, helping students prepare for admissions to top schools through individualized educational programs that increase chances of admission by up to 10 times. Ingenious Prep students work with former admission officers to differentiate themselves from other competitive students in 3 areas colleges evaluate students: in academics, extracurricular activities, and personal characteristics. Just this past admission cycle, Ingenious Prep students have secured 110 offers from Ivy League schools, 268 offers from top 20 schools, and 904 offers from top 50 schools. Ingenious Prep student success lies within the fact that Ingenious Prep is an all-in-one consulting firm offering every service a family needs, whether it be test prep, tailored candidacy building mentorship, academic mentorships, the Leadership and Innovation Lab, soft skills courses, writing courses, and other customized programs to develop their application persona to the most effective and authentic extent to share with colleges. Just click on the link in the episode description to book a free strategy call with one of Ingenious Prep's college experts, or you can visit ingeniusprep.com. That's ingeniusprep.com. and let them know you came from the Fatherhood Challenge.
Welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge, a movement to awaken and inspire fathers everywhere to take great pride in their role and to challenge society to understand how important fathers are to the stability and culture of their family's environment. Now, here's your host, Jonathan Guerrero.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest is psychotherapist, keynote speaker, and parent coach, Nicole Runyon. Nicole, thank you so much for being on the Fatherhood Challenge.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Let's dive right in. Nicole, let's start from the beginning of how you got into coaching parents and helping them understand their child's mental health. What's your own story?
So my story starts when I was around 10 years old. And I decided that I always loved children. I was one of the oldest in my family, my siblings and my cousins. And I had just really felt like I wanted to go into something that made a difference in children's lives and help them. And psychology was just always an interest of mine. And so I ended up having a private practice where I specialized in seeing children. I've done that for about 21 years. And in the last 10 years or so, I've noticed sort of a major shift with this generation of kids. And the shift was that I was seeing mental health cases in front of me with these very severe symptoms with no root in any kind of trauma or any psychosocial issue that I could attach it to. And in my training, I was always taught to see the child in the context of their environment, which for a child is their family or their community or their school. And when I would do digging into these kids' lives, I would find that for the most part, everything was intact. I mean, sure, there were some things to work on, maybe, some family dynamic stuff to work through, but nothing that would warrant the symptoms that I was seeing. And so I kind of started asking myself, what's happening with these kids? And this was 10 years ago, so nobody was talking about the effects of technology on child development. That was, at the time, the only thing I could pinpoint as to the reason why we were seeing such severity in mental health cases. And over the last 10 years, I've sort of developed more of an understanding and an idea of what's all-encompassing for them. The technology is absolutely a big issue, and it's affecting their development, but the parenting is also really struggling right now. And so I decided that rather than pathologize the child and put them in the chair of the mentally unhealthy person, I thought, if I could just work with the parents, I really think I can make a difference for these kids without even really having to see the kids at all. And it's, really just been amazing, the changes that I've seen in families so quickly since I've switched to coaching parents rather than seeing children.
That's absolutely amazing. Being able to focus on the parents as the solution. There's a really, really big gap that I see there. Two sides of it. Yes, I see one side of it with technology stunting children in a way, and I also see technology stunting parents. So there's a mental health crisis going on with kids. It's been flooding the ER rooms. What can dads do about it?
Dads are really key here and really important. And the reason for that is because dads are typically very good at discipline and boundaries and holding space for kids. Dads are kind of the strengths and the strong pillar of the family. And what I see a lot happening with the mental health crisis is kids are not getting what they need in terms of structure and discipline. So what I mean by that is there's too many choices and there's too much permissiveness. And so that's creating a lot of anxiety for kids because it doesn't feel safe for them. It may be what they want, and they may resist the rules and the structure and the discipline, but it's actually what they need. And so dads really can provide that. And it's not that moms can't. It's that what I've seen in families is dads are really taking a back seat. And it's often because they don't know what their role is anymore. It used to be, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to remember the days when moms used to say, well, just wait till your father comes home, because dads
remember that.
Yeah, right. Because dads were always sort of that strong disciplinarian. And when I say discipline, I don't mean, corporal punishment. Not by any means. Discipline has gotten a bad rap because of that, because it used to be that. But discipline can come in many forms, and it can simply just be, here's the rule, here's the boundary, you need to respect it, or there will be a consequence. And that's really what's missing in today's parenting. One thing that I notice in families when I coach couples is that moms will often say, well, I do it all. I don't get the help. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overburdened. And dads will kind of chime in and say, well, I try and help, but it's never right. And so I'm often trying to help moms allow dads to step in, even if it's not the way that you would want him to or exactly how you think he should. Just give him that autonomy and that freedom to jump in when he sees fit, because dads really need that confidence. And that's a huge thing missing in families. And it's affecting the kids.
Okay, I didn't expect you to go there, and I'm so glad you did. But you said that dads don't know their role very well anymore. And I think you're absolutely spot on with that. I think that is so, so true. And a lot of this has to do with different social pressures that are out there through the media, which I don't know, may or may not be why you're saying it's been so destructive. But there are these pressures that are out there, all these new narratives that are out there, and then dads are afraid of making mistakes or doing the wrong thing. And so the safest thing to do is nothing at all.
That's right. And I think we're on the same page there as far as where this started. Because yes, I think men are no longer allowed in society to be strong or, to be like that person that says, hey, no, this isn't okay. And here's your consequence because you didn't do what you needed to do. And that really has been a detriment to kids. We wonder why there's so much anxiety. Anxiety comes from a lack of feeling in control. So there's this inner chaos. You don't feel like you trust yourself or you're confident enough to work through whatever those feelings are. So you try to control your outer world. And kids are able to control their outer worlds now more than ever because parents are allowing them to. A lot of parents will come to me and say, the kids are ruling the roost, and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to reel them in. Oftentimes one kid in the family, the scapegoated kid, or the one that the parents want to be in therapy, they'll be the one sort of controlling the whole family dynamic. And I think we have this concept of, toxic masculinity, and men can't be men anymore. And so, they've taken a backseat and they don't know what their role is, because that is their role. So what are they really there for? I'll often have dads in couples that I coach that will say, I don't even know that there's a reason for me to be in this family. I mean, it's that extreme for them. Because who are they, or what are they if they're not that sort of that pillar of strength?
I also see a flip side of that, which is mothers that are just flat out burnt out. They're overworked, they're overstretched on their time and everything, and they don't have a father that's present in the kids' lives, parenting equally, putting in that same amount of work, and the mothers are doing all of the work. The dads are checked out, and somewhere they've gotten that message. It does backfire. There is an image out there that the mothers can do everything and they don't need men. And I think most of that might be, for the best way to put it, is a defense mechanism, because that may be the hand that has been dealt them. And that's the circumstance that they find themselves in for a variety of different reasons that could possibly be. But that isn't necessarily what we should be aiming for. That isn't the goal. That isn't the standard, and that isn't what it should be. And I think a lot of mothers out there would actually like a little bit of help in parenting.
100%. And I'll tell you what, I think we as working mothers have been sold a bill of goods, because we were told, I mean, I'm Gen X, and all through my childhood, I was told that you could have it all. You could have the family and the career, and it was definitely romanticized and looked upon as, the ideal. And when I first got into it, having a career and a child, and my career, I was in private practice, so I peeled way back on the amount of clients that I was seeing when I had my first child. And even still, I was overwhelmed and overworked and overburdened. And so the reality of what I was told as a child was not happening. And I was a bit disillusioned by that. And so and I think many women, my answer was to try and control everything. Right. So my big wake up call was when I had my second child. My kids are 5 years apart. So when my second child came along, there was a huge adjustment, because I had had one child for 5 years. And I remember, just being exhausted, of course, a new mom and trying to juggle everything. And my husband had made my son, my oldest, breakfast one morning because I was sleeping. And I woke up and I went into the kitchen and I noticed he had used the wrong spoon to mix the oatmeal. The wrong spoon, right? And I had enough sense in my new mom haze to not say a word, because I knew that was a me issue. And I thought, wow, I guess I really am in need of a lot of control, and I have some work to do here. Because if I had given him I know I had given him that energy before, but if I had continued to give him that energy, I would have never gotten the help I needed. And I would never be in a place right now where I really feel like I have a partner, because I allowed it. So this is what I think women need to start kind of understanding, is we're not the victims here. This wasn't done to us. We sort of did it to ourselves. Now, it wasn't our fault because we were told we could have it all. But now we need to recognize, guess what? You can't have it all unless you have a partner that is willing to put as much work in as you are. It's just nearly impossible unless we get even more technologically advanced and clone ourselves. It's not going to happen.
I love the generational component that you mentioned. I'm also Gen X, and we're known as the latchkey kids.
Hmm.
And I remember my mom working all of the time, and a lot of times it seemed like I raised myself. So I can only imagine that same image that Gen X women especially have gotten. The new message and the message that you're saying is that it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way.
That's right. Because what happened is the second wave of feminism told our mothers that they should go to work. And there was no conversation about one, how that was going to affect the family, and two, how the family was going to have to adjust to mom's going to work. So what ended up happening is Gen X kids mainly got neglected. And now us Gen X kids have teenagers. And in that wound of neglect, we swung the pendulum too far into the other direction. And us Gen
Mm.
X working mothers overdid it because we said, well, we don't want our kids to feel our absence like we felt our mother's absences.
Uh-huh. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a detriment to Gen Z, Gen X's children, because they didn't get enough of that. Like you said, like you learned how to rely on yourself. They didn't get enough of that because the moms swung too far. And while they were swinging, they left the dads out because their example was that their dads weren't involved in their lives. Dads were very bewildered as well with that second wave of feminism. They weren't used to that either. They were used to being the providers, the ones that went to work every day. And then suddenly moms were in the workforce and they just continued to just go to work and not participate in the family afterwards. So there wasn't enough conversation around how to have both parents working. And I think we're doing a little bit better now. But I can tell you, I see a ton of couples with this issue where mom is overdoing it and she doesn't have to be because dad is willing. And this is what I love about dads. They want to be there. They just don't know how.
Let's change gears a little bit. What are the top 3 things kids think about and want to know from their parents, but may not ask verbally?
I think that kids want to know that parents are people. I think today's kids are overindulged, and I think parents don't have enough boundaries. I tell parents to share with your kids, hey, I'm a person too, and I have needs. And, I think that kids should know about that. They don't know to ask, certainly, but parents need to be having those conversations. I think kids also need to know that a boundary means love. It doesn't mean you're mean or you want to hurt them or you don't want to make them happy. And kids, thirdly, need to know that negative feelings are a part of life and discomfort is a part of life. And parents need to be able to be uncomfortable in themselves to hold the space and provide their kids discomfort because that's life.
Is there a war between social media use or technology?
It feels like a war to me. Yeah. I mean, it's a strong word, but it's also a very strong energy that is coming at families today when it comes to technology and media and social media. And the war is really about connection versus disconnection. And that's inherently at the foundation of it. And so, parents and kids are always arguing about screen time and what's too much and what's not appropriate and what is appropriate. And at the end of the day, American families, well, I think this is global, so not just American families, but families in general are disconnected, right? I mean, like we said, everybody's working, everybody's exhausted, everybody's overburdened and overworked. And so families are just checking out at the end of the day, parents and kids. And so I think if technology were taken out of the mix, at least even just intentionally for some period of time during the day or night in families, and families had a chance to just be together and have silence and just talk or connect in some way, that we could actually start to get somewhere with this issue.
Your husband is a girl dad, correct?
Yeah, we have a boy and a girl.
How has he been a great role model to your daughter through your marriage?
Well, the first thing is what he's modeling for her with the way that he is a husband. He's a gentleman, he's loving, he's kind, he's very much a partner. He cooks, and he actually made me dinner on our second date, and that was one of the things that really got me. I thought, wow, a man that can cook is a man I want to be with.
That's amazing.
And the other thing that he provides for her is just a really strong, loving connection. He adores her and she adores him. And when he needs to, not as much as I would like, because I think she's a daddy's girl and he's easy on her. But when he needs to, he's got some good boundaries and is providing just a very safe, loving connection for her.
What about your son? What kind of a message is your son getting from the father that he sees?
Similar to my daughter, he's seeing how his dad treats his wife. And that's a really good model for what we're trying to teach him. And I think that seeing a man who is strong and vulnerable is really important. And so my husband is able to express and communicate his feelings and gets emotional sometimes. And my son sees that, boys have feelings too. And it's okay to express and communicate them, because that doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, there's a lot of strength in that.
What is your greatest accomplishment as a parent? And what would you say is your husband's greatest accomplishment?
I think for me, my ability to self-reflect and recognize what my issues are and how that's affecting my parenting, and not just be aware of it, but actually make changes that I need to make is, my biggest accomplishment, because that's been the hardest thing. And I think same for my husband. We've both done some really intense individual work on ourselves and reflected inward and made sure that our awareness of ourselves is reflected in our parenting. And that's been a very hard, a huge challenge. And we didn't always do that. So I think that, it takes a lot of strength to at one point say, you know what, this isn't working. I need to make a change. And we both did that.
The whole inner work thing is a theme that seems to be coming up in many conversations I've had with other guests, the necessity for it. I wish that I would have done what we call the inner work much earlier in my marriage and much earlier in my parenting. It would have saved a lot of grief along the way. But it's very, very difficult. It's difficult if you're a guy, just because of the stereotypes that are out there. That's bad enough. But just the image you have, having to really go against your own ego and fight those internal voices, and this image of strength that you're trying to project for your family. And you spoke of vulnerability, about how your husband models that emotional vulnerability both to you and in front of the kids as well. The years of inner work that you've done to try to arrive at that place. And I guess what I really want fathers listening to know and understand is that doing that very difficult inner work, asking those very difficult questions of yourself and sometimes of each other, putting in that time and work is normal. It should be normal. And if you want to really be strong for your family, this is a powerful way to project that strength, because what it ultimately means is having a skill called self-control, emotional self-control, and control for how you interact with others. And I think that is probably one of the most powerful ways you can do that. And it seems like a juxtaposition to say the word emotional or the term emotional vulnerability with the same term of self control. But when you look at it, when you are repressing whatever traumas, whatever you've gone through, you're doing that because you ultimately don't have control over it. And that is a desperate attempt to keep control over it by putting it somewhere else, keeping it out of sight, and just not dealing with it. I mean, am I really far off the mark here?
Oh, you are so spot on. Wow. That was so well put. And I think absolutely what men need to hear when it comes to this issue, because control is a huge thing, right? And when you can internalize it and tell yourself that it's self-control, and how you have self-control is you learn how to express and communicate your feelings, and that's a part of it. That can feel really good, I think, for a man. That's really where it's at. So I think, when you say you wish you would have known this sooner, I think that a lot of men are needing that message. So whenever you figured it out, and now that you figured it out, you're helping other men, it doesn't so much matter. It's that you did figure it out. Because I think for men, maybe they feel, oh, it's too late, or, oh, my kids are older, or maybe even some that are grown. It's never too late. I see men, my dad is a perfect example. He was always that typical pillar of strength, never show emotion. And as he gets older, I have more and more sort of deeper conversations with him. And he talks about things that, happened to him when he was a child, or, when he was a young father. And I'm just so inspired by that. It doesn't matter that it took him, decades to come around. I'm just glad that he did.
I find that, at least for me, you go to opposite extremes when you don't have that true control. One is you overreact to everything. So you lash out in anger, your kids do something, and your reaction is always explosive.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite extreme is you don't react at all, which is what we were talking about earlier, where dads just check out. Having that true control, where you're not running from the emotion, but you're controlling when and what and how you're dealing with that emotion. So we talked about in one episode a funny scenario where, and it's happened in this house, where one of the kids draws on the wall, and you're already tired, you're busy, you don't need one more thing to do, and then there's this mess on the wall, and you just want to explode at your kids. Being able to stop and understand very clearly that that's how you want to react, and being so aware of it that you can step outside of the emotion and choose to say, I'm going to stop, and I want to say something so bad, and so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to the garage and work on the car, or fix this, or go mow or whatever. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to think this through, and then I'm going to come back and address this. After I've calmed down a bit, had time to think about it, maybe spent some of that angry energy on something else productive and gotten that physical exertion out, come back and address it with a little more open-mindedness and things like that. There's so many examples of how that can play out, but it's that awareness, when you're that aware of what you're feeling, to where you can choose and decide what you're going to do with it. That to me is real control.
Oh, 100%. And that's probably the hardest thing really for anyone to do. But the most important thing for your kids, because the message is going to get lost on them otherwise. And there's always an opportunity to learn and grow from something that they do or some mistake they make. But if you overreact, then forget it. The message is gone. They're not even going to hear you. So it's the hardest thing to do, but the most important thing.
And they see that. I mean, they're not dumb at all. They know you're mad at them. It wouldn't be difficult for them to see and process that. So the next thing they're watching is, what do you do with that? And what an opportunity to model that in a positive way for them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I, as you were saying that, I was thinking of, even the babies even know that, right? I mean,
Yes.
I had a couple in my office recently, and they always bring their baby with them. And she's starting to get into stuff, right? She's moving around, she's grabbing at things. And so we always, baby-proof the office when they come in. And we had forgotten about one thing, and she was about to touch it, and she looked at me. And, because she was facing me. Her parents were behind her. And I thought, wow, isn't that something? She knew that I was going to be somebody that said, no, no, don't touch that.
Wow.
So they know just inherently, like you said, they know when, like, they feel you, they feel your energy. They know when you're going to discipline them, or, they're looking to you to model that.
Nicole, how can dads listening learn more about what you're doing or get coaching?
Sure. So I am on LinkedIn as Nicole Runyon, and Instagram at iGeneration Mental Health. I have a website, NicoleRunyon.com, where you can go to my coaching page, and there's a button to book a discovery call if you're interested in working one-on-one.
Just to make things easier, if you go to thefatherhoodchallenge.com, that's thefatherhoodchallenge.com. If you go to this episode, look right below the episode description, and I will have all of the links that Nicole just mentioned posted there for your convenience. As we close, what is your challenge to dads listening now?
My challenge is to, as painful as it is, to put yourself in a family dynamic you feel left out of, or that you don't have a place in. Be uncomfortable and put yourself there and work through it, because you are so needed and so valued, and your kids will thank you for it someday.
Nicole, it has been absolutely an honor having you on the Fatherhood Challenge. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fatherhood Challenge. If you would like to contact us, listen to other episodes, find any resource mentioned in this program, or find out more information about the Fatherhood Challenge, please visit thefatherhoodchallenge.com. That's thefatherhoodchallenge.com.
I'd like to pause and thank our proud sponsor of the Fatherhood Challenge, Zencastr. If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcast production platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. But the reason I personally use and trust them with the production of this syndicated radio program is their professional broadcast quality sound. There is no better time than now to start your podcast using Zencastr for all your needs. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code FATHERHOOD, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.